Hey everyone, it's Brennan. Welcome to my channel and welcome to another video. Today we are going to wrap up all the books that I read in August. I read 14 books in August, which is awesome. Another great reading month for me. And I also started using Storygraph in August, which is another book tracking app. I'm still going to use Goodreads, but I like Storygraph also because it has these really cool charts on it and it gives you a lot of good monthly wrap-ups. So I will pop these up on the screen here, but it tells you the mood of the books that you read, which I think is really interesting. So you can see in August, I mainly read emotional, lighthearted, and funny books, which is really funny because I think last month in July, it was all like dark, intense. But you can see I still read a pretty good amount of dark, intense books in August also. Oh, and you can see the number of pages that I read also, 5,137 pages. I've never really kept up with how many pages that I read. And you can see the genres that I read are mainly contemporary, like 9 contemporaries, 7 romances, 4 thrillers, 3 crime books, and 1 historical. Does that add up to 14? No. So these are probably like tied in together, but this is just really weird. Okay, I get the contemporary because a lot of romances are contemporaries. Okay, I get that. I agree with this now. We can move on. And my average star rating, which I switched to Storygraph probably in the middle of August or towards the end of August. So I wasn't really giving half stars to a lot of books at the beginning of this month because that's something you can do with Storygraph, which is awesome. You can give quarter stars and half stars, which I like, but also Noelle from Noelle 7 Pages was mentioning this, and it's so hard to rate a book even with 5 stars, for me at least, because it's either like I really liked the book, I felt okay about the book, or I didn't like it. And then like to break that into 5 stars, let alone 5 stars with quarters between them all, it's a lot, but I'm doing it now. So anyway, my average rating for August was a 4.32 stars, which is wild. I give books good ratings. If I have a good time reading the book and I don't have any big complaints, it's gonna get 5 stars. So is that something I need to work on? I don't really think so. Here I am. If someone writes a book, I'm like, you worked really hard to write that book, and if I liked it, I'm gonna give you 5 stars. So those were some quick stats to wrap up my month of August, but for this video, I'm going to rank these books again and go from the worst book that I read in August to the best book. And honestly, these books are either I really didn't like them very much at all, or I really, really liked them a lot. There's not a lot of in-betweens here. I didn't give any real 3 stars. I gave a 2 and a 2.5, and then it's 4 stars and up from there. And so without further ado, let's wrap up these books. Also, what you're going to find in this video is that half of these books I already talked about in my Enneagramathon wrap-up. So if you watched that video, I'm not gonna bore you with long, drawn-out descriptions of these books. And if you haven't watched that video and you're interested, go back and watch that because there's like 6 or 7 books on there that are also on this list, including the first and worst book that I read in August, which was Winter Garden by Kristen Hanna. I just really didn't like this book, but it got 2 stars because really the writing was very good. But this is a historical fiction. We're following 2 sisters as they deal with a tragedy within their family, and they try to get closer to their mother, who they've never really had much of a warm relationship with, and we're kind of finding out why they have grown up believing that their mom genuinely dislikes them. Even though they grew up in this home where their parents are still together, they had a great relationship with their dad. And what I just really, really didn't like about this is that the situation they found themselves in, which was thinking their mom hated them and not knowing why, and now they're in their late 30s and early 40s and they've just accepted that their mom hates them. What I couldn't believe is that their dad would let them think that, because their dad loved their mom, just like doted on her, but never took any kind of time to maybe tell his daughters why their mom may be a little colder toward them, and just let his daughters, who he also loves, grow up being visibly distraught by how their mom treats them. So that's why I didn't like this. I don't know if that makes any sense, but what I did like about this was learning their mom's story. Like, I did like that. It's set in Russia, in Leningrad, during the siege that took place there in World War II. But anyway, that was a terrible time, and their mom has a lot of baggage from that. And they've just never known that before. I don't know. I was just really drawn out of this story by how unbelievable the setup was. The second worst book that I read in August, and really this is the last book that I need to refer to in any kind of negative terms, but this was Local Woman Missing by, I want to say Kane Minato every time, Mary Kubica. Mary Kubica. Let me confirm. Yes, Mary Kubica. And I picked this up because Caroline was raving about it in one of her wrap-ups recently. And in the first 10-15% of the book, I thought, you know, maybe I could really like this. But then it just got really, honestly, hard for me to listen to. And I know Haley from Haley Hughes, she read this recently and gave it 5 stars, really, really liked it also. So I am not a avid thriller reader, even though I've read a lot recently, so maybe I'm trying to change that. But what I didn't like about this was that, like I said, it was hard for me to read, and that's because I did feel very unsettled, which is good for a thriller. Like, you do want that sense of unease, and it was really bothering me because it was feeling like it could be very real. And now that I have finished it, I don't feel like it's very real. I just thought, like, when we figured out what was finally happening, I was like, oh, I don't really like that. Like, are you sure? Like, really? That's what happened? So I was just really unsatisfied with where it went. And then also after it wrapped up, I was like, did you really have to do that part at the beginning where you made me feel really super icky? Let me tell you what this book is about, maybe. So we're in this town where there have been a couple women go missing, and we have a couple different timelines. One is like 11 years ago, and then one is in the present day. And when one of the women went missing 11 years ago, her 6-year-old daughter also went missing with her. Well, now in today's time, that 6-year-old daughter has returned as a 17-year-old. So the case is kind of opened back up a little bit. It was never solved. They never knew what happened. Actually, I think someone did end up going to jail. Anyway, on the whole, like, people don't really know what happened. Obviously, this little girl has been missing for 11 years, and now she's shown back up. But what really disturbed me with her was that there was this really creepy couple chapters at the beginning that was like her living in a basement and then her escaping, and it was really, really sickening. I don't think I'm a wimp. Like, I can handle like gory, messy, disturbing stuff, but it was just a lot, and then I wasn't satisfied with where it went. That's all I'll say about that. I gave this 2.5 stars. I gave it 3 stars on Goodreads. It was interesting and I appreciated the story, and it's probably a good thriller, but I didn't like it very much. Okay, now these next 12 books I have to talk about. I enjoyed all of them. So I feel bad saying that this is the book I enjoyed the least, but just know that I still really liked it. It got 4 stars from me. This is Is Maud Dixon by Alexandra Andrews. This is a debut novel, I think, from this author, and this is a thriller. It's an author thriller. These next 2 books are going to be author-centered thrillers. But in this world, there has been a book that was released. It was received with all of this acclaim. It was just this huge bestseller. It's on every celebrity's book club, and the author uses a pseudonym, so no one knows who Maud Dixon really is. And we have a character in here who is this young, she works in publishing, she's like an assistant to different publishers, and she finds herself between jobs, and then she gets scooped up to be Maud Dixon's new assistant. So we learn more about who Maud Dixon is, and then these women take this very interesting trip together, and then that's all I want to say. It's a thriller. There's some exciting stuff happening. You learn more. There's twists and turns. We go out of the country to Morocco. This was a good time, and I don't think I should say anything else about it except that you should not read the blurb on Goodreads or the synopsis on the cover. Don't read that because it spoils a pretty big plot point that I didn't see coming, so avoid that if you like to be surprised by your thrillers, which you should because that's why you're reading a thriller. The next book I also gave 4 stars to. This was The Plot by Jean Hanff Korelitz. This is another author thriller. I really don't want to say a lot about this book. I honestly feel like in my Enneagram wrap-up I may have said too much about it. So what I'm going to say about it here is that we have an author, and the plot for an astounding book falls into his lap, and he doesn't really know what to do with it. Well, he feels like he should write it. Like, it's not a book, like no writing has fallen into his lap. It's just the idea for the book, and he decides to write it, and then he gets into some sticky situations because he chose to write this book. That's all I really want to say. Like I said, I gave it 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. What I did want a little bit more in this book was some development of one of the characters. But either way, I had a good time reading this. I listened to this on audio. I think I listened to Maud Dixon on audio too. It was just the month of audio thrillers for me. But these last 2 thrillers I listened to, would recommend. They were really good if you like thrillers centered around authors and writing. Okay, number 10 on this list is another 4-star read, and it was Non-Perfect Strangers by Liane Moriarty, another mystery book that I listened to. The audio was really good. So Liane Moriarty is Australian, and her books, I believe all of her books are set in Australia. This is the first one that I've read, but hearing Australian people talk on audio, it's just very pleasing, okay? I have an accent. I appreciate other people's accents. And this was also, is it Hulu? I am like really ignorant when it comes to television shows. It's just not something that I stay up to date on. But this was definitely turned into a TV series, and I think it was on Hulu. But I really don't want to call this a thriller. This is more just like a mystery. There's no really like thrilling aspects of it. It's just kind of a twisty mystery. We have 9 strangers. They're all at this health retreat. I think it's called Tranquility House. And it is run by a very eclectic group of people. Mainly one really eclectic woman. And she's putting these people through these really weird mind, body, spiritual improvement sessions, and you're learning each of the characters' backstories, how they ended up there. You see them interact with each other, and then you just kind of go along with them and you learn about their lives. I really liked this. I couldn't put it down. I listened to it super fast. And of the 4-star books I read in August, this was near the top. Okay, the best 4-star book that I read in August was Very Sincerely Yours by Carrie Winfrey. This is the sweetest, cutest romance that I've read in a really long time. I want to say wholesome, but it's not quite wholesome. Like, there's a touch of steam, there's a little bit of vulgarity in it. So I don't really want to call it wholesome, but these characters have the most wholesome jobs ever. Our female main character, Theodora, aka Teddy, she works at a vintage toy store. Super cute. And our male hero in this story, Everett St. James, he is like a local television personality who does Mr. Rogers Meets the Muppets shows for children. And at first I was like, are you serious? Like, me, I kind of see myself as like a darker romance reader, but this was just so pleasant. It was so adorable. So our plot here is that Teddy has been living with her long-term boyfriend for like 6 years, and he's just this like unpleasant, very caught up in himself, and he just takes himself very seriously, and Teddy has only ever seen herself as someone who facilitates life for him. And she's kind of just accepted that. She likes to help people, she likes to make other people feel good and have other people feel happy. So she just lives on the back burner basically, until her boyfriend kicks her out. He says, you don't have enough going for you basically. I want someone who has their life more figured out. Are you going to work in this toy store for your whole life? Is that your only plan? You need to move out. Teddy doesn't really know how to accept this news. She goes and moves in with a couple of her friends, and their relationship is really cute together too. They're all just like really, I want to say eccentric. They're just really interesting. I really like eccentric characters. But since Teddy has had this big life change, she decides to do something that scares her every day. Well, one thing that scares her is reaching out and sending an email to Everett St. James, who she finds to be very embarrassing that she watches his show on their like local, imagine like here it's like PBS or KET. What does that stand for here? Like Kentucky Entertainment Television, Kentucky Educational Television. Imagine like whatever channel Clifford used to come on, she watches his shows on that channel. Okay, so they start this really cute correspondence by email, but then they meet at like a karaoke bar, but she obviously knows who she has been emailing, but he doesn't know who she is. It's one of those things, but then they meet each other and it's their relationship, and it's so cute. And I just really liked this. Everett has really cute relationships with his family. He has a much younger sister. Everett's probably like mid-30s, and then he has a 12-year-old sister, and their relationship's super cute. This book was just that. It was super cute. I didn't give it 5 stars because the writing kind of felt really unpolished to me sometimes. She said the word well a lot. I don't know how to explain it. It just had a lot of like, well, comma, that just like irked me a little bit. It just felt, I don't want to say not professional. I really enjoyed this book, but every time she said the word well, it like pulled me out of the story, and I was like, don't say that again. Okay, the first 5-star book I have to talk about is Shipped by Angie Hockman. I really enjoyed this book. I kind of hate to put it at the bottom of my 5 stars, but it was 5 stars nonetheless. I talked about this book a whole lot more in my Enneagramathon wrap-up, but this is a super cute romance. It's like an office romance, but then they go on a cruise ship and they're in the Galapagos Islands, and they kind of have like a tense relationship, but our female main character, she has a name, and it's from the Eagles, Henley. Her name's Henley and her sister's name is Walsh, and I just thought that was so amazing. But this is their romance, Henley and Graham. I think his name's Graham. It has like an E in it that was really throwing me off. But this was super cute. I gave this 5 stars. I love the setting. I love their relationship, and I love Henley's desire to like move up in business and how that was handled, and how supportive Graham was, and how she just had this really great supportive system of friends. And I think that's all I want to say about this. Check out though my other video that I'll have linked below if you want more on it. Another book that was in that video is Conversations with Friends by Sally Rooney. What can I say about this? These books are just very artistic to me. For some reason, I can't put them down, even though what's happening in them really is quite boring. Like, these are like character studies. Like, I feel like these could be real people having these real experiences and problems, and I'm just being creepy and watching. So we're following a few characters. Our main character is like this young 20s college student, university student. I don't know what they call it in Ireland. I think that's where they are. I'm trying to think of the actual town. It's the same college that's in Normal People. Trinity College in some place in Ireland. But she just has these super interesting thoughts, and everyone's a little bit depressed, but it just makes them interesting. I don't know if that was a good statement to make, but everyone is just very introspective, and everyone's kind of sad, and everyone's interacting with each other, and that's how I'm going to describe this. I don't think I want to say anything else. I almost hesitate to recommend these to people because I do think it takes a very specific audience to enjoy this, but apparently that audience is me. Oh, the next 5-star book I read was a thriller, and it was so good. Like, it might have to be in like some kind of year-end wrap-up video. This was For Your Own Good by Samantha Downing, who is the author of My Lovely Wife, which I also enjoyed, but I loved this book so much. This is like dark high school academia, and the teachers are really creepy people. Not creepy people, but just really bad people. What do I want to say about this book? I haven't really thought about what I want to say because I finished it recently. I don't want to give anything away. So there's this super prestigious high school. Like, it's basically a prep school for Ivy League possibilities. So it's a lot of rich kids, and their families are putting a lot of pressure on them to be the top of the class at this super prestigious school. And then some murders start happening. I'll say murders. Some murders start happening at this school. And you're following perspectives from some of the teachers who may be involved in it. I don't want to say anything. And maybe some people aren't involved, but they still think that they are. This is just super interesting. And like I said, these characters are terrible, horrible people, just full of themselves, very self-centered, very manipulative, very unpleasant, but in the best way. Like, I was hooked by this book. It was so good. 5 stars, obviously. And now I need to read Samantha Downing's backlist because I've read 2 of her books, loved both of them so much, especially this book. And if you want like a dark academia thriller, I would pick this up. So good. Definitely recommend. It would be at the top of this list if these next books I have to talk about weren't so just like quintessentially me. And one of those books is It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. This is a 5-star read. I love Colleen Hoover books. I love her characters. Her plots are so messy. The lives of her characters are just so interesting. And sometimes I cry. There is my description for every Colleen Hoover book that's ever been written. I'm just kidding. Okay, I exaggerate a lot. I hope y'all know that. I'm pretty sure I've talked about that in a video before. I like to exaggerate. Like, I talk in oxymorons. Is that what they're called? Or hyperboles? No, I talk in hyperboles. Wow, I'm not an English major. But I don't know what exactly to say about this book because I don't want to give anything away. It's romantic and there's kind of a love triangle, and we have two different timelines, and one is told in journal entries from our main character, Lily. So we're reading her journal from when she's 16, and then we are in her current day life when she's like 24 or so. She has graduated college. She's wanting to open a flower shop, which sounds super lighthearted and wholesome. This is not a lighthearted or wholesome book at all. Lily's parents had a lot of domestic violence in their relationship, and this is a book about that. So if that's triggering to you, just know that going into it. I just think this book was beautiful and painful and hopeful. So that's like a perfect book for me. And I don't have that much else to say. Like I said, I don't want to spoil anything. If you like Colleen Hoover and haven't read this book, read it. If you like darker, more painful romances, read this book. So It Ends With Us was number 5 on my list. And 4 through 1 is all from the same series because I just couldn't like break these up throughout this list. But this is Penny Reed's Winston Brothers series. I finished it. I finished it in August. I read 4 books out of the 7 in the series. Yeah, it's 7. What I haven't read though is the Beardy bonuses, and I have the audio for those, so I do plan on reading those. But I will just touch on all of these because I have hyped up this series on my channel. It's an adult romance series. It's set in Tennessee in the Appalachian Mountains, and each book is from one of the different Winston brothers, and these are all just so good. I cannot say enough good things. I have actually given every single book in this series 5 stars because I just think they're perfect. Cletus's book, the 3rd book, Beard Science, is still my favorite though, but I just listed these in order because truly I do think the last book in the series was my favorite out of these. So Beard in Mind, which is Beau's book and the 4th book in the series, follows him and Shelly. Shelly is a mechanic at their shop. She's from Chicago. She's like a city girl and she has moved to a more secluded area in Tennessee. She's kind of focusing on like some artistic projects. She's like an artist. She does sculptures and things like that. But Shelly has OCD, so her perspectives are super interesting. She's in therapy and Beau like helps with her therapy some. She doesn't like to be touched and they do some like touch therapy, which in a romance book that sounds like super hot. This book was super hot actually. This might be like the steamiest book in the series. So 5 stars. I loved it. Beau in the family is like the charismatic flirty boy that all the ladies in the town love. And then the next book, Dr. Strangebeard, is Roscoe's book. Roscoe's the youngest in the family. For most of the books he's like in his younger 20s, like 22, but then this book has had a bit of a time jump of like 5 years or so. So Roscoe's a vet now, so he's done vet school. I don't want to say this is a second chance romance. This is his romance with Simone, who he was best friends with in like middle school, elementary school, middle school, high school, and then something happened and they kind of cut their friendship off. But Simone is Daisy's daughter, and Daisy owns a diner in the community, so there's your like family ties there. But Roscoe and Simone were best friends growing up, and now Simone is like an FBI agent, which is incredible and quite convenient for our underlying plot of tying up this motorcycle gang that terrorizes the city and terrorizes the family. So their dad was like a higher up in the motorcycle gang, the Wraiths, and now he's in jail. Maybe he's out of jail in this book. But Simone being an FBI agent is quite convenient and helpful. But this is their rekindling romance. They go to the Kentucky Derby in this and they talk about Lexington, which is where I live. But I loved this. It was super good. So 5 stars there. And then the next book in the series is actually a time jump backwards, and some of our characters are back in high school. And this book is actually from Claire's perspective. She's not in the family, but she has had this weird will they won't they with Billy Winston, whose book is the last book. But this is their backstory. This is Claire and Billy's backstory. And actually her name is Scarlet. So you find out some stuff there. I mean, we knew her name was Scarlet. So Claire, I feel like I'm gossiping. I feel like me talking about this is just me gossiping. So Claire's dad is the main Iron Wraiths leader. His name's Razor, and his name's Razor because he cuts people. And we know that Claire has basically been on her own since she was like 14. She like left town, but now she's back in town. She was like teaching at the school in the first book, but now she's like a famous singer. Okay, anyway, obviously a lot happens in this series. Claire's book, Beard With Me, is when they're back in high school, and we get the backstory of why she and Billy have this super tension together. The story's taking place when Claire is trying to leave town. Well, she's not really trying to leave town, but she's basically homeless. Like, she's living in the woods behind the Winston house because her family is terrible and she doesn't want to live in this like motorcycle gang compound. So she's like 14 on her own, and people want to help her, and maybe Billy wants to help her, but also maybe Billy has a lot going on too because their dad, Daryl, is still around in this one, and Jethro's being a piece of garbage. Like, Jethro, one of the brothers, was tied up in the Iron Wraiths, and so in this book he's like really bad, which is kind of hard to see because now he's obviously good. But this is their backstory. I think that's all I'll say. It's very emotional. And the last book that I will talk about is Billy's book, Beard Necessities. They're in Italy in this one for a lot of the book. And this is Billy and Claire handling their differences and getting back together. So Billy had kind of done something for Claire that she never knew about, and obviously now she needs to learn about it. So I don't know what I can say about this. Billy and Claire are together now, and it's very satisfying. And we have all of our other characters in here. It's like they're on this big family trip to Italy, and it's just so good. I cannot recommend the series enough. I love Billy. I think out of all the Winston brothers, Billy is probably who I would be with because he's very moody. But he's also very funny sometimes, but like the dry, witty kind of funny. And Claire's great also, obviously. I mean, she is like this big famous country singer now. Maybe she's not that big and famous, but she's like an up and coming country singer now. And it was just really satisfying. This series is so good. It has taken over my life this summer, and for me to finish a series, like, that's big. And I need to credit my office friends, my friends from work, because they have started reading the series also, so we like had to keep up with each other to finish it. So yes, a 7-book romance series that I read in like 3 or 4 months. Amazing. But thank you all so much for watching. Let me know if you've read any of these books. Let me know if you want to pick up any of these books. I would love to know. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in my next one.